Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, colleagues, human rights advocates, and participants joining us from different parts of the world. And on behalf of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, which is SARIM, I would like to warmly welcome you to today's international webinar in commemorating the International Day in support of victims of torture, which is observed annually on June 26 under the auspices of United Nations. Our theme for today's discussion would be protecting minority rights and human dignity. This observance serves as an important reminder of the continuing global responsibility to prevent torture, combat impunity, and uphold the inherent dignity rights of every individual. Despite significant developments in international human rights law, torture and other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment continue to affect millions of people worldwide, specifically those who are belonging to vulnerable and marginalized communities. Minorities, indigenous populations, refugees, stateless persons, and other disadvantaged groups often face disproportionate risk of discrimination, arbitrary detention, violence, and institutional abuse. The protection of these communities is therefore not only a legal obligation under international law, but also it's a moral imperative central to democratic governance and social justice. Today's webinar seeks to foster an informed, meaningful dialogue on critical issues by bringing together distinguished experts representing academia, civil society, and human rights advocacy. Before we begin, I would like to once again thank you to all our speakers for saying yes to this theme and provide their valuable time for our webinar. So our first speaker for this webinar would be Mr. Nay San Lwin, who is a renowned Rohingya human rights activist and co-founder of Free Rohingya Coalition in Germany. Mr. Lwin has been at the forefront of international advocacy concerning the rights and protection of Rohingya community. Through his work, he has raised global awareness about displacement, persecution, statelessness, and the urgent need for justice and accountability. We are grateful for his continued efforts and look forward to hearing his valuable insight. Moving on, our second speaker would be Professor Chai, who is a distinguished scholar in the field of law, constitutional governance, and geopolitics. Professor Chai serves as a professor of law geopolitics at the Federal University of Maranhão and also faculty of Vitória in Brazil as well. His extensive academic work has contributed significantly to discussion on constitutional rights, democratic institutions, human rights protections, and legal accountability. We are truly honored, sir, to have you to provide your perspective on international legal frameworks and protection of human dignity. And we welcome you for joining us as well. So lastly, we have Dr. Sanghamitra, who would be our third speaker, who is currently pursuing his postdoctoral as a researcher at Pilani, Birla from Goa campus. He's also a board member of International Political Science Association Human Rights of IPSA. Dr. Mallick's scholarly work focuses on human rights, social justice, public policy, and minority protections. Her research has contributed significantly to understand the intersection between law, governance, and vulnerable populations. We are truly delighted to have your company with us, Dr. Mallick. So to start off, I would request Mr. Nay San Lwin for his insights. And once again, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. And thank you to Brother Furkan Ahmad and the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, SARIM, for inviting me today. And it is an honor to be here alongside a distinguished speaker. And this Friday, the world will mark the International Day in support of victims of torture. Most people hear the word torture, they think of a dark, hidden prison cell, handcuffed, and prisoner being harmed. But I'm a Rohingya activist. When I think of the word torture, I see a completely different picture. For the Rohingya people, torture is not something that happened to just some people in secret room. For us, it is collective punishment. It is a systematic tool Myanmar military has used for generation to destroy, to try to destroy our entire community. And they have used it to take our land, erase our history and identity, deny us our citizenship, and strip away our basic human dignity. Today, I stand before you to give a voice to millions of Rohingya people, both those trapped inside Myanmar and those living in crowded refugee camp in Bangladesh. To understand the current regional situation of minority, we have to look honestly at what happened to the Rohingya. Our story is a terrible reminder of what happened when a government and military spread hate and the wall stand by doing nothing. For a decade, the government and military in Myanmar told the public that we didn't belong. Since the 1978, the military has launched several operations to authentically cleanse the Rohingya, including the latest in August 2017, the so-called clearance operation. In reality, it was a brutal campaign of genocide. The military used every form of torture you can imagine. They walk into the peaceful villages and open fire. They use mass rape as a weapon of war to break the spirit of our women and girls. They lock family inside their home and set them on fire. Almost 400 Rohingya villages were burned to the ground. These were not random acts of angry soldier. This was a planned method of physical and psychological destruction. They wanted to make the pain so terrible that we would run away and never come back. More than 750,000 human beings had to run for their life into Bangladesh in just a few weeks. Every single person who ran carried a story of torture. Many people think that because of 2017, violence is over. The torture has stopped, but it has not. Inside Myanmar, since the 2021 coup, a massive civil war is raging. The Myanmar military junta is fighting various rebel groups, including the Arakan army in our homeland of Arakan or the Rakhine state. Once again, Rohingya civilians were trapped right in the middle. And here is the most painful part. The very same Myanmar military that tried to destroy us has lost the war. Desperate, they forced young Rohingya men to join their army. They kidnapped our young men from their home and forced them to hold gun for the military that had murdered their family. If they refused, they were tortured or killed. If they won, they were used as human shield. This is a continuous living nightmare for our family. Now another story. The rebel group Arakan Army is predominantly Rakhine Buddhists. They pretended they would respect the Rohingya right if they could occupy the Rohingya territory. Instead, they killed at least 2,500 Rohingya within a few months in 2024. They also tortured and forced at least 200 Rohingya within a few months to flee to Bangladesh. What they have been doing is finishing the unfinished business of Myanmar military. They are the same as Myanmar military, forcing the Rohingya young men and women into conscription. When it comes to Rohingya, both the Myanmar military and the Arakan army share the same intention to wipe off the entire Rohingya population from Arakan. And in the camp of Cássius Bazar, life is standing still, and the camp are overcrowded, made of bamboo and plastic sheet. But the worst part is losing hope, especially after almost 9 years. Our children are growing up without a proper education. Our young people cannot plan for the future because they do not know what tomorrow will bring. And this webinar is focused on protecting right and finding pathway towards justice. As an activist, I see two urgent steps we must take. First is we need absolute accountability. We have cases open at the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court, but the international justice move painfully, slowly, while our people are dying quickly. The top general in Myanmar must face consequences. If they get away with genocide, it tells other leaders across the world that they can torture their own minority without punishment. Second, we must focus on giving our youth a future. Torture doesn't just destroy a person's body, it's still their time. In the camp, a whole generation of Rohingya children is growing up without a real education or legal job. We cannot talk about the human dignity if we leave a million people with no future. We need to support education and skill training, especially by especially by supporting the Rohingya-led school and group on the ground who are keeping our culture alive. In conclusion, the goal of torture is always to break human spirit, but Myanmar military failed. Our spirit is not broken. We do not want to be passive victim forever. We do not just want to survive on food aid. We want to return to our home in Myanmar with safety, ethnic right, citizenship, and dignity. The Myanmar military tried to erase us, but we are still here today. I ask you to stand on the right side of history, use your power to break up for the Rohingya, because our fight for justice is a fight for human dignity everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brother Nay San Lwin. We can feel the pain and the sorry state of Rohingya people, and we salute and admire your perseverance, your resilience, and the spirit of not losing hope is really commendable. So I really wish and pray, and we really wish and pray that your issues will be sorted out soon. As we were talking about in our informal discussion, that the issue of Rohingya has been unaddressed for the past decade or so. So there's a time that it needs to be brought to the justice. The perpetrators needs to be put behind the bars, or need to bring to the court of justice. So on this note, I would be requesting Professor Chai to provide his insights over the theme today. Thank you so much, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, dear colleagues and followers of the SARI initiative, for which I'm very honored again to be invited by senior researcher, Mr. Furkan, full secretary of the Research Committee of Human Rights of International Political Science Association, dear Professor Sanghamitra, our colleague. It's very good to meet you here and share some ideas with you. And thank you, Professor Nay, for your sharing perspectives regarding the violence currently exposed by your citizenship nationals. So I'd like to approach the topic as underlying Brazilian and Global South perspective, but maybe deconstructing Northern myths. So in a couple of days, we are again in the momentum of the commencement on behalf of the unforgettable violence that we've been through, despite being in Brazil and Spain or in India or Pakistan, which is the violence named torture. So we shall stand with the survivors of torture. So this conversation will move beyond the purely Western-centric narrative. We will ground ourselves in the official data of 2025 and 2026. I remember that last year I was also invited to share some ideas on behalf of this date. So I'd like to share with you, Professor Nay has shared his concerns regarding the violence implicated and addressed to Indian citizens being in abroad or domestically speaking in India itself. So torture is never random. It is technology of power. And it is systematically targets those whom states and societies mark as other by racial, ethnic, religious, sexual, and political minorities. Last year, report to the Human Rights Council of the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Dr. Alice Jill Edwards reaffirmed, quote, that torture is frequently used to silence, to punish, marginalize minority communities. Data from the UN Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture, also aligned with that perspective, showed that over 60% of supported victims belonged to discriminated minority groups. But to understand why this happens, we needed a different lens. The colonial thinker Aníbal Quijano, which is a very renowned scholar, South American, spoke of coloniality of power, a global order built on the idea of race as a marker of the human and the subhumans. Torture is not a glitch in that order. It is one of its constitutive technologies. Protecting human dignity, therefore, cannot happen without a specific unapologetic focus on minority rights. And I'm very glad that SERIN has never lost its commitment with minorities in Southeast Asia. Brazil, for example, we have ratified the United Nations Conventions Against Torture back in 1989, but optional protocol in 2007. Nonetheless, unfortunately, for our regret, in Brazil, the national mechanism to prevent and combat torture registered in 1 year from 2025, June, 2026, June, 5,234 complaints of torture and ill treatment in the penal system, along 12% rise from the previous year. So 2024 was not a very nice picture as well. When we talk about the incarcerated population, Black Brazilians make up 68% of the prison population, a similar share of torture complaints. So these numbers, they are intersected by social design and legal and political constraints. The 2025 Brazilian Yearbook of Public Security recorded, unfortunately, 6,329 killing by police. Over 82% of the victims Black. Many of those killings involved beatings and suffocation, pretty close to what we have seen around the world in the case of the American Black citizen who was just pushed to the floor, the floor case, and suffocation that meet the international legal definition of torture. This is not a crisis, colleagues. This is technology of power. It's not a crisis of implementation. It is the palimpsestic rescription of a colonial logic. Slavery in Brazil ended formally in 1888. Nonetheless, without land reform or redistribution of power. So currently the penal system, the Brazilian penal system, absorbed the corporal techniques of the slave quarters. The military dictatorship perfected them, and the 1988 Constitution prohibited torture, but left structural racism intact. Indigenous peoples in Brazil, we also face this same violent perspective. Indigenous peoples faces an equally brutal version of this logic. The Indigenist Missionary Council documented over 200 cases of violent invasions and acts of torture in 2025, especially against the Yanomami and Mundukuru ethnicities, original population. So illegal miners and land grabbers beat, rape, mutilate, and force communities get off of their land. The torture is not an interrogation technique. It is a message inscribed on flesh, and you have no right to be here, and the state's failure to act transforms the private violence into a de facto arm of racialized territorial policy. When we talk about the LGBTQ plus population, deaths recorded 257 murders in 2025. Men with hallmarks of extreme torture, mutilation, immolation, prolonged beatings. The state rarely classifies these as torture, which denies effectively victims legal recognition and reparation. So the common thread again is coloniality. The production of certain bodies as less than humans, as occupying what Frantz Fanon called the zone of non-being, the non-social being, a space where violence, Furkan, against them does not register as a violation. It is authorized by political choices, undoubtedly. So before they were killed, many land and environmental defenders were tortured to terrorize their communities. Unfortunately, again, from that remark, us in Brazil, we are in the first place of countries who murdered human rights defenders, globally speaking. Global Witness has reported 34 of 196 global land defender killings into 2024, all of them, unfortunately, in Brazil. When we look at the mirrors of the South, Libya, India has been shared with the Professor Nay, Myanmar as well. These cases highlighted, but I'd like to shift for the deconstruction that torture just happens in the global South. That's not true. Torture is exported beyond global North to our borders. So Brazil is not an exemption. It's emblematic. Libya, India, custodial torture overwhelmingly targeted the Dalits, the Muslims, and so on. Have been said by Professor Nayan, Myanmar. I have not touched this. But three myths we have to the opportunity to deconstruct Professor Sanghamitra. The first one is that the global North frequently responds with a civilizational distance. That distance rests on three myths. We have exactly 2 minutes to deconstruct, and I will conclude. The first myth is liberal democracies don't torture. That's a lie. Guantanamo, Galé, United States policy violence protests. Yesterday we were discussing in Lisbon and the International Forum for Policy Enforcement and Legitimate Studies about the resilience. When we see resilience, when we want to understand resilience from the perspective of legal scholars, we shall ask ourselves, when the rule of law is resilient, it is resilient when it keeps its promises to establish and to protect equal and freedom people, equally speaking. When the rule of law disenfranchise its own structure, it is not resilient anymore. To be resilient is to be coherent with the foundational principles of the social organizations and the institutions as guiding rules, binding and engaging rules, as been said by Professor Douglas North, the Nobel Prize in Economics, back in 1993. So the second myth is, when we talk about Europe, 2025 CPT report condemned France for the ill treatment of migrants in Calais, calling it cruel, inhuman. The subcommittee of United Nations visit to the United Kingdom found deliberate, severe pain inflicted on ethnic minority prisoners. In Greece, pushbacks and migrant detention under severe deprivation have been labeled a persistent pattern of degrading treatment. And the third myth, torture works. Broken clock, interrogation scene with an X, red X. The second myth, so, is to fed by popular culture, is the ticking time bomb. It is empirically false. The Senate Intelligence Committee report already proved that the CIA torture produced no actionable intelligence, that lawful interrogation could not have obtained. Neuroscience, particularly the work of Shane Omar, shows that extreme stress hormones damage the brain's memory and executive function centers. A person under torture will say anything to stop the pain. The interrogator cannot tell the truth from fabrication. But the myth survives because it does ideological work. It dehumanizes the imagined, the terrorist whose secrets can only be accessed through violence, and legitimates the suspension of law in the name of security. So, colleagues, we have to be the same page. The most violent myth is the myth of epistemically violence imposed. It positions the South as a perpetual pupil. It also hides the historical truth that modern racialized torture was perfected during colonialism. The Belgian Congo, the French Algeria, the British Kenya, those techniques were not aberrations for European civilization. They were its instruments. Deconstructing this myth does not reject human rights. It reclaims them insisting that the South has its own traditions of dignity and its own authority to define them. So, to conclude, I would remind all of us what if ancient saying born in India and in the Southeast Asian region. Injustice in one place is injustice everywhere. So if you get silenced before the torture, what would come about us as legal scholars, politicians, political activists, minority defenders? I think that's the time that we shall require that international organizations should commit to the coherence on the basis of their own foundations. Thank you very much for colleagues.
Thank you very much, Professor Chai, for first of all providing the statistics and the numbers recently committed against and in different forms of torture. And thank you so much for decoding the myth behind the tortures in different zones and different countries through an academic and legal lens. So from Brazil, I would now turn our attention to India, where Dr. Sanghamitra is patiently waiting for her turn, and we are grateful to you for providing your time on this very important and timely topic. Over to you, Dr. Sanghamitra. And also we are grateful to our colleague from RC26, Dr. Tirupati, as well, for joining us for this event as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and for conducting such pertinent topic. A very good evening or good afternoon or good morning to my dear colleagues and friends. Today we are here to discuss about the topic is the support of victims of torture or protecting minority rights and human dignity. So, as you all know, like 26th June, we commemorate this day because UN has adopted this Convention Against Torture in 1987. So to reminds us that torture is a crime against humanity, an absolute violence or violation of human rights or dignity that no circumstance can justify. So, as already Professor Khai or Chai, apology for this wrong pronunciation of your name, Professor has already mentioned how even in a democratic setup, also such kind of a torture or human rights violation also happens. So, when we talk about the torture and protecting minority rights and human dignity, we used to talk about the discrimination and violation which often visible to us in front of our eye. However, there is existing a more silent and invisible and a systematic form of torture that continues to fund the democratic fabric of a country. That is, we don't much talk about that. That is like custodial violence or communal targeting. So already Professor Khai has explained about global South, global North, worldwide. Also, he gave a lot of examples, and his previous speaker also, Professor Nay, also explained. So my talk is basically will focus on the Indian perspective side. So, in case of India, if we ask a common citizen of regarding this torture, they might not they might have very less knowledge or information about this custodial torture, basically, which leads to custodial death. There are two types of custodial torture, I'll tell. One is police custodial torture, another one is judicial custodial torture. So, due to that custodial torture, the prisoners or those who are arrested persons, they lose their life without any trial or without going into the justice. So this custodial torture remains one of the darkest realities of our criminal justice system. According to the National Human Rights Commission, India, that government data also reveals that there are more number of judicial custodial death than police custodial death. Those are already in the prison. Their cases are higher than the police custodial deaths. So according to this National Human Rights Council, NHRC data between 2021 to 2026, there are approximately 140 to 146 deaths occurs in a police custody every year. And for judicial custody, there are death case 1,600 to 2,200 annually. So basically, if we talk about this custodial death, who are the victim of this custodial death? So in the Indian context, the victims are basically from the vulnerable sections as Dalits, Adivasis, Muslims, poor migrants, slum dwellers, political activists also even, linguistic minorities also. So all these are suffer or victim of this custodial death because there are a lot of socio-religious or such kind of discriminations or hierarchies are there. So religious minority and Dalit particularly, if we take, are frequently targeted under suspicious radicalization or cow smuggling, or sometimes, the Adivasi also suffer due to deep-rooted socioeconomic vulnerability and caste prejudices. So torture methods include severe beating, as you all everybody know how they used to use electric shock, even sexual violence also they used to adopt. So most of death occurs when fast, like 24 to 48 hours within that period. So even after that also, the conviction rate of the police officer remains below 5%, creating a culture impunity. So if we see again, because I'm focusing only on this custodial death. If we see this, why these minorities or marginalized sections of the society suffer such disproportionately in comparison to other sections of the society. So there are structural bias, there are socioeconomic vulnerability, there are majoritarianism, there are cultural impunity also. So looking into the structural bias, suppose in case of Dalit and Muslim, I have already gave that example. Sometimes in the name of Gauraksha, Go means cow. To save the cow. Cow is a sacred animal for Hinduism, suppose in case of India. If any Dalit or Islam people they are slaughtering, or if they are in the doubt of slaughtering or supplying, sometimes they are capturing them or they are taking them to the police custody, and in that way also they lose their life. Coming into the socioeconomic vulnerability, there are poor people, there are less educated people, those who are not aware about their rights, their liberty, and they don't have that much economic capacity so that they can fight with the law and order. So that is also another uh, uh, criteria of suffering through this custodial death. Although there are legal or constitutional safeguard in the Indian Constitution for the protection of human rights, as Article 21, rights to life and dignity, and Article 1415 is about talking about equality before law and prohibits discrimination against a citizen on the ground of caste, race, religion, and sex. But still, such inhuman practices going on. It's not stopping anywhere. So coming into the conclusion, torture, like Professor has already mentioned, that torture doesn't break the human body only. It breaks the psyche, it breaks the dignity of the human dignity. Those who are the victim, it is the it sends the clear cut message to them that you are not belong to the equality. So basically, it depends in the it depends in the social division. It erodes the trust in the democratic institutions, and also it weakens the secular fabric of the nation. So how we can look forward, or how we can improve, or how we can create a social consciousness as a conscious citizen? We should make awareness in our surrounding, as well as the implementation of police reforms and independent investigation mechanism also needed. Along with that, to ensure strict implementation of the Protection of Human Rights Act and prohibit rehabilitation or compensation or psychological support to the victim, those are victims. And the government should take initiative to promote human rights education in the school syllabus or in the higher education syllabus, so that those who are the citizen of the country, they will get aware about their rights and human dignity. Although they have their human dignity, but when they will get one way how to protect or how to raise their voice, uh, it will be more or better. It will be better for them. Yeah, as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, democracy is not merely a form of government. It is a mode of associated living. It means democracy is a way of life. It refers to how people live together in a society with mutual respect, equality, fraternity, dignity, and cooperation. With this note, I'm thanking Furkan for this initiative, great initiative, and Sarim also. Always, you are bringing the voice of downtrodden, those who are not getting any platform to speak their truth or their voice. Thank you once again. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanghamitra, first of all, for acknowledging our small efforts or little steps that we are taking in the shape of providing platform to people who won't have any other means to speak out. And thank you once again for bringing your perspective, specifically on providing the case studies of custodial torture. Also, we are truly grateful to Professor Chai, Brother Nay San Lwin, for your valuable remarks, and Thirupati as well for joining in our webinar. So on this note, on behalf of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, I would like to present gratefulness to all participants who joined us from different countries and time zones. Your engagement demonstrates and it also reflects a collective commitment to advancing human rights, justice, and human dignity. Our discussion has reinforced an important message. The prevention of torture is not merely a legal challenge. It is fundamentally a question of humanity, protecting minority rights and other vulnerable groups, and safeguarding human dignity requires sustained commitment from governments, institutions, civil society, scholars like Professor Joy and Dr. Sanghamitra and Thiru, and citizens alike. So on this note, thank you so much for your time and your patience for being with us, and keep subscribing Sarim, and keep watching our academically written discussions and topics on different topics on different subjects of the world. On this note, thank you.